Hiya, I'm Joe, and I've just plugged a microphone into my PC, so I'm basically qualified to start a podcast now. Let me tell you about all of my horrible worldviews and how you can make money off of cryptocurrency. But before we get into that, I want to talk about my week, because I had a very interesting week. Actually, I met a very interesting lady. I'd probably say she was probably maybe mid to late 50s. And what a life story. It all starts, I'm sitting in my car with my friend and he says, "Oh, do you want an iMac?" And I said, "Yeah, how much?" 20 quid. So it's an old iMac G5. Now, I'm a collector of vintage Apple stuff, so I said, "Yeah, you know what, I absolutely would love an iMac G5. I've been after one for years." And I turn up at this lady's house and she says, "Oh, it's a bit old and don't expect to be able to do a lot with it." And I said, "Oh, absolutely not. I'm a collector of these things. I adore them. Yeah, playing with them, knowing them for what they're worth is kind of what I do. I love it." And so turns out she really knows her shit about funnily enough, my niche little hobby. So we got talking for hours about that, and so I bought the iMac off of her, and anyway, she says, "Oh, I've got an old PowerBook inside." Or sorry, she didn't say PowerBook. She just said an old laptop. And I said, "Oh, absolutely. I'd love to have a look at it." And I was expecting something like a PowerBook G4. Maybe if it was one that I didn't have, I'd offer some money for it. But I wasn't really interested in something like that. And it's an old PowerBook 3400C, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, how much do you want for this?" And she says, "You can have it because you seem really interested and passionate, and I would love to see it go to a good home." And to be honest with you, I nearly cried. I was so grateful, and I've actually kept in touch with her since. It's a very, very lovely story, and I'm so glad that she was happy that I was taking it. And obviously, I've kept my word. I really will look after it. I've nursed it back to health, and I'm in the process of. I've replaced a capacitor, but it's still not quite working as it should yet. So, fingers crossed, I can do a little bit more with it over the coming, weeks, months, whatever. But that was the iMac experience. The iMac itself, by the way, which was weirdly enough, that was kind of the thing that I went for, but that turned out to be the least exciting part of it, beyond the PowerBook and meeting this fascinating lady. The iMac is fine. The iMac's great. I've definitely gotten everything that I wanted out of that. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that. Maybe even thinking about setting it up so that my dad can use Photoshop on it, which would be really nice. But a couple of days later, I'm with my course mates, and we're talking about using an Xbox Connect for our production that's coming up. So we're going to be we may be using an Xbox Connect for bone mapping, right? So skeletal tracking, that's it. Because it's part of this production that we're making. We're doing some projection for an Indian dance troupe, which is hopefully going to go ahead over the coming months. And so we're talking about an Xbox Connect. Anyway, so long story short, we end up in CEX, and I buy myself an iPod. Yeah. So that's cool. So I've got an iPod Touch 4th generation now, and I've been playing with that, having an absolute blast with it. I had one of these when I was a kid, and I never got closure on that. My sister broke it callously one evening, whilst browsing Facebook at 3 o'clock in the morning. My dad was apparently coming down the hallway, so instead of just turning it off, she decided to lay back on it and broke the charge port out of it. And it hasn't worked since, which is fine. It's fine. I can deal with that. I can never let go. But this one is incredible. Everything works. The camera is just as awful as I remember it being. And I'm just having a lot of fun with it. So that's kind of maybe everything on the technology front this week. My friend Joel came over this weekend, and it's Thursday. He's still here, and it's been really nice to have him around, because I just never really get to hang out with him that much, and it's kind of cool to introduce him to my world a bit, which is interesting, because I forget people don't live inside my brain. They don't see what I see every day, so it's nice to sort of introduce people to people that I know and be like, hey, this is someone from way back. This is someone that I've spoken about, but you've never met. Put a face to the name now. And that's really cute. It's kind of really sweet watching worlds collide like that. And I'm really appreciative of Joel for kind of chipping in and seeing my little world and enjoying company of my friends. So yeah, that's Joel's visit. And to be honest with you, that's probably everything I can really think of right now. I mean, I've got some kind of interesting projects that I'm thinking about working on. I made an album for a joke. It was terrible, and I loved it. What else? The iPod, I'm considering after this putting iOS 7 on it. You might be thinking, oh, a 4th gen iPod Touch, you can't do that. But it's possible these days. Someone has actually made it work. So I'm quite excited to see what that can do. I've heard it's not exactly plain sailing, but I'll be interested to give it a go. And the PowerBook, I'm so excited to see what I can do with that, because honestly, the keyboard is to die for, and I would love to use it in lectures. I never even touched on my dodgy worldviews. But I hope. I'm a very nice young man, and I hope that I never end up getting arrested because of a pizza box and Greta Thunberg. But that will never happen. I'm just an amateur podcast host. That would never happen. I would never get arrested for many crimes in Romania. That would never happen, ever. Let me just eat my cereal.